arrangement. Let's take you through the top 10 countries with the most extended working hours in 2024. Despite its relatively small population of approximately 700,000, Bhutan, surprisingly Bhutan, ranks as the country with the highest average working hours globally. Employees in Bhutan work an average of 54.4 hours per week. Following Bhutan, the United Arab Emirates report high working hours, averaging 50.9 hours per week. In Lesotho, people work for 50.4 hours every week, which makes it the third country with the highest working hours per week in the world. At number 4, we have Congo, where employees work for 48.6 hours per week. In Qatar, employees have an average work week of 48 hours. Now, the comments of Larsen & Toubro's chairperson S.N. Subrahmanyan have sparked widespread outrage, with many even questioning the implications of such a grueling work culture. The first criticism that's being levelled is that prolonged work hours can lead to burnout, fatigue, stress and higher risk of physical health issues. That includes heart diseases, even sleep disorders. The second criticism that's being levelled is that a 90-hour work week severely limits time for personal life, family and even relaxation time, making it difficult for employees to maintain a healthy work-life balance. The third criticism is that overworking reduces cognitive capacity, leaving little mental energy for innovation, problem solving or even fresh ideas, ultimately affecting the productivity and creativity of the workers. Now, started by Infosys' N R Narayana Murthy's 70-hour work week remark, the discussion around optimal work hours has consistently ignited fervent debates, with the latest being L&T chief S.N. Subrahmanyan, who also suggests that 90-hour work week should be the new normal, and that includes working on Sundays. Several high-profile figures have advocated for working 70-plus hours a week, believing that long hours are necessary for success and innovation. Narayana Murthy, the Infosys co-founder, has advocated for 70-hour work week, emphasizing that discipline and dedication for business and success is only achieved through such long hours. Elon Musk, the Tesla and SpaceX CEO, has recommended working 80 to 100 hours a week, claiming it leads to better outcomes and innovation as well. Daksh Gupta, who is in fact an AI startup Reptile CEO, has advocated for an 84-hour work week, believing long hours contribute to rapid business growth. Grant Cardone, who's an entrepreneur, supports a 95-hour work week, urging individuals to push their limits for success and financial independence. So when it comes to these controversial remarks made by the L&T chairperson, is the 90-hour work week row even feasible, or is it too much to ask for employees? We'll be debating that in just a minute. And with that, let me introduce our esteemed panelists today. I'm joined in by Dr. Kapil Kakkar, who's a renowned psychologist, also joined in by Sunil Alag, who's a market strategist and managing director of SKA Advisors, Dipanshu Manchanda, who's the founder and CEO at Zapfresh, Kanish Gaur, who's a CEO at Deep Tech Startup, and Rituparna Chakrabarti, who's an independent director at co-founder and former CEO at Team Lee Services Limited. Now, in fact, I'm going to begin with you, Rituparna. Many have in fact called this as a very sexist allegation coming in. Before I deep dive into that debate between the hustle culture and work-life balance, let me also decode what the L&T chairman had to say, because it's also been called as a sexist statement. Many women are questioning that what's the harm if men want to stay at home on Sundays and stare at their wives? But what about the women? Are you also saying that women don't deserve to be at work, or are they supposed to be the ones looking after their children? All right, I seem to be having some audio issues over there with you. In fact, let me take that question from Kanishk as well. Kanishk, if you could go ahead and answer that. Kanishk, can you take that question?
Yes. See, I think the answer has been taken in a rather different context. Uh, the chairperson was really talking about keeping people motivated, right, and contributing to the productivity of the organization. In the context of the nature of work which L&T does, it is required people contribute significantly and are more passionate about leading work. And then he made certain comments in a light-hearted manner. When you're building the future, you have to work hard. People at leadership roles talk about giving it their 100%. And a lot of times you have to put in that extra hours. Hence, I believe that there are people who still follow that 70, 80, or 90-hour rule. That's why the future is getting built, whether it is Elon Musk, whether it is Narayan Murthy, or whether it is the gentleman who's spoken. So it might not apply, the rule might not apply to everyone. But as a country, if you're talking about competing with world superpowers like China or Japan, we see people in those parts of the world are hardworking. And if you're talking about India becoming Viksit Bharat and people working hard to ensure that we stay competent, it definitely requires people to spend more time and do that extra mile. As a founder of a deep tech startup, I do work hard and I do want to do more, but that's again not just work; it is with passion.
All
So
right,
this is more
I want to also
context of
quickly
passion.
bring in Sunil Alag. Sunil, does everybody want to be a Jeff Bezos or a Mark Zuckerberg? Or are we just looking at this from an overall development perspective in terms of fintech, infrastructure development, even industries that I belong to, like media?
See, as far as I'm concerned, you can have we work all the time because mentally we're there. Physically, I'm against working so many hours. And even though he said it lightly about staring at your wife and your wife staring back at you, actually, my wife tells me to go to work every 4 hours or 5 hours. If you stay at home, you're going to interfere in my job. But I'm just saying that, look, as far as most people are concerned, it's farmers who are the unorganized sector.
Yes.
It's entrepreneurs who work very hard. Maybe even every Sunday they're working till they achieve a certain amount of success. Then they sit back. So it's a question of number of years that you spend on this. Because if you spend the rest of your life thinking like Narayan Murthy or Mr. Subrahmanyan, then you are in deep trouble. Because ultimately, your wife's photograph, he's not shown himself. He's not. See, if your wife she might not be at home at all on Sundays. You might sit down and relax and let your mind work on whoever there is. But each kind of job when Tesla is talking about, and you're comparing it to China and India and Japan, how much are they earning per week? And you might work very hard for X number of years. That's what's important is productivity. But entrepreneurs work, farmers work. The poorest farmer works for 12, 13, 14 hours a day. But he doesn't work throughout the year because certain months of the year he's sitting at home and the other days he's working.
I can see Dipanshu is also back. Dipanshu, are we saying that, our home fronts need no hard work? If we are putting in all the effort in our offices,
No.
I'm going to quickly bring in Dipanshu on that note. Dipanshu, then
Yes.
who sits at home to look after the family, to look after the children on Sundays?
I think,
Because if you're looking at a
Yes.
90-hour work week, you're clearly expecting the worker to be clocking in throughout the year, 360 days.
I think it's a very, very, one-sided statement which has been made with due respect. And work-life balance is, in my view, one of the tools to productivity. Let's not forget that. Less number of hours do make the person more productive. You have to also look at the efficiency level. Okay, even when we are talking about China or some of the other examples are there. You look at the quality of the products and look at the what they're producing and how it is getting consumed and what India is doing. I think inherently we are a very different DNA company, and in countries as well in India.
No, I
So
want to
in
quickly
that
ask
way,
you, as a CEO and founder yourself, how many hours have you been clocking in to get to the point where you
okay,
are?
so see, as a founder, it's a different ball game. As a promoter, what I
Yeah.
mentally do work
See,
like everybody else is saying around the clock with all the time available, most
right.
of the time available, and that does affect the personal life to a large extent. But we are talking about a workforce which is employed in the corporate India. We're not talking about the founders. This is not a statement made for entrepreneurs. In my understanding is. So, from a workforce point of view, I think it's a little stretched of a statement. A 10 hour, 10 to 12 hour maximum a day is I think should not be exceeded than that on an average. You have to devote time at home. Otherwise, why are you making money? End of the day, what is the
Yeah.
larger goal you want to achieve? It's just very, very, pointless to make that kind of a success and then not be able to enjoy with your family. What are you
All
making
right.
it for?
Rituparna, I quickly want to bring you in on what impact it has on the society when, say, men in positions of power, like Mr. Subrahmanyan, who's the chairman of the L&T, make statements like these. There's also a very sexist angle to it, but apart from the whole focus on hustle culture versus work-life balance, but what do you make of it when, such commentary comes in from men in positions of power?
Is that a question for me?
Yes, Rituparna, that's for you.
Right? Yeah, I mean, he's a person and a gentleman of very high regard and stature. And with that stature comes a huge responsibility in terms of every word that comes out of his mouth. And I think, enough has been said about the fact that number of working hours does not necessarily lead to improvement in productivity. And there is no such study in the world. People give examples of Japan. Look what's happening in Japan. And really have youngsters right now left, basically because people have worked themselves to a situation where they're just only old people in that country. And yeah, we know what else is happening culturally in Japan. So let's not give Japan as an example that we should emulate. I think India's focus, and I'm part of that ecosystem who wants to see India becoming highly productive, be right on top. But we have to be mindful while we're talking about being the 5th largest economy in the world, our per capita income is still very low, which is indicative of the low productivity as well in the country. In every possible productivity index, we are low. However, the number of working hours, in terms of number of working hours, India actually is doing a fairly large number of hours. Every Indian is. We must also be mindful of the fact that every Indian spends 2-3 hours in any of the cities in commuting. That also, which means that much time also is taken away.
I think that's a very fair point, and I think Sunil doesn't agree with you. Sunil, even if you disagree, I just want to ask you, why do conglomerates like Google still have overworked employees in developed nations?
See, as far as I'm concerned, when you divide the number of people we've got, everyone is looking for a job. Okay, now when you sack somebody or when you tell the person is not working and you sack him, then he's without a job. In India, it's very, very different from independent, whatever she says, whatever the lady is saying, it doesn't matter at all because the productivity is the number of people who work divided and then that gives you the product. Don't divide the whole population. Is the farmer non-productive? Of course he's productive. That doesn't mean that he is not at all in the entire scene. Look, as far as I'm concerned, India is looking, the population and the number of jobs available are not commensurate to America or Japan or anybody else. Therefore, you don't compare to anybody. But that's what I'm saying. That productivity is very high.
Right, fair enough. But Dipanshu, if I could bring you in on the development aspect of this, looking at it from the point of view of a developing nation versus developed nations, do you think that the unorganized sector, as Sunil has also been highlighting, is also playing a very pivotal role because who remunerates the unorganized sector? Who remunerates the labor force that's at my house, who's perhaps pitching in extra hours as well?
Yes, and if you look at even the SME sector, for example, companies below 100 crores, okay, that is the backbone of a country like India. You look at a grocery store or a kirana store or any small business
Right.
around you. You are going to look at it that they are putting a lot of efforts. The employees which are working there in retail, so all of them are already, in my view, stretched. So if you make such, blanket statements of even surpassing, 10, 12 hour a day, I think it will really really affect the physical health and leads to more cardiac arrest as we are seeing, which is happening to a lot of business owners precisely because of these reasons. Thankfully, there is no suicides and cardiac arrests which are happening with employees. There is a massive mental health issue which already the new generation is facing, and if on top of that the work pressure also starts mounting, it will lead to a massive societal breakdown in my view. So I think
Dr. Kakkad,
it
I'm going to
it
come
doesn't
to you
make
on that
sense.
note, but I quickly want to bring in fact, one of the other panelists. Kanishk's views are right now very crucial because, Kanishk, I want to ask you, how do you assess Anna Sebastian's death, the 26-year-old whose mother had to pen a letter to the ENY chairperson as well when she complained that nobody even turned up to her funeral? Employees clocking in extra hours only so that when they pass away, due to overwork and stress, nobody turns up at their funeral.
See, we as Indians have not learned to say no when work is pushed on to us,
Thank
because
you for
the
calling that out.
opportunities in India are less. If you look at a person who's delivering food at your home through Zomato or a Swiggy, look at the number of hours he's clocking. The person who
Yeah.
drives you back home on a Uber, how many hours is that person clock? Someone who does audits, how many hours they clock. So in terms of defining minimum wage rate in the country and what should be the right balance, we haven't defined that. So calling out and saying that the CEOs are getting heart attacks at 40, 44, I don't think so is the correct context. It's more of the balance that has to be defined across. So there are still people in this country who slog more than 100 hours, even 120 hours.
Dr.
And we have
Kakkad,
not looked at that
I want to bring
segment.
you in because, like Harsh Goenka said, and I'd like to quote him verbatim, he says that working hard and smart is what I believe, but turning life into a perpetual office shift, is that the reality? That's a recipe for burnout, not success. Work-life balance isn't optional, it's essential. So is there an option when you start growing up the ranks? Is there an option to play smart and turn your life into that? Do you think that work-life balance can even be achieved? And
Right, thank you. How I see this is that his statement is ineffably disappointing for a simple reason, that he is primarily looking at from his own filters and from his own prison point of view, and it may come from a person who himself is a workaholic and he's expecting others to be like him. Now, this gentleman, we have to understand, he's 64-year-old. He has his kids who are settled. In L&T, in an organization like L&T, you would have young executives starting their families. You would have executives who would be in family with children. The children need time. So it's not about looking at your wife every Sunday. So a parent, as a parent, they are the guiding light for their children. They're the mentors for their children. So when we talk about family, so it's not only about, it is about nurturing
right,
our kids.
but Dr. Kakkad, I also want to bring you in on one point, because let's not just make this about L&T. Perhaps it's also borrowing from a culture that exists in Asia. Look at Bhutan, look at China, look at Japan, look at South Korea and India, Bangladesh. We are just known to be overworked nations.
I like to answer this also. If you look at South Asia and Southeast Asia, they are the most hard-working people. In Europe, they work for 35 hours in a week. In US, they work for 40 hours in a week. And India, we work for 55 to 58 hours in a week. And then we are talking about taking it to the next level, and that to an extreme level. So that is the kind of mindset that we Indians have. because somewhere we have this notion of unconscious exploitation. We will tend to exploit others thinking, okay, let me push him as much as one can. And that is where my second point is, an organization, if they think the organization is doing exceptionally well, why not recruit more people?
All right.
Why not engage more people
Right.
rather than expecting people to work 90 hours? And one last thing, when you talk about burnout, World Health Organization in around 2020 had said it is an occupational syndrome, it's an occupational hazard, which leads to
I think
cynicism
Sunil,
towards
true. And
work.
Sunil wants to make a point as well. In fact, the WHO has also highlighted how most of the overworked population hails from Asia. But having said that, Sunil, how do you see or react when you see those images coming in from Japanese trains where, you know, workers are passed out in the subways, on the train seats, suicides happening because of a toxic work culture in China? What does it speak of where we've arrived as a society?
See, mentally, you are there for 7 days of the week, even as a consultant, even as an MD of an organization. Physically, getting 90 hours is out of the question.
Right.
If you ruin that, physically, mentally, yes. Mentally, even I'm there 24 hours. I'm there for 7 hours,
No,
7 days in a
mentally
week.
you
But I'm
cannot
just
focus
saying that
on one
physically
work,
you cannot do it.
no, I'm sorry. Mentally also, you can't focus on one work continually. You need
No.
break. You see, we call it stress busters. Now, what are stress busters?
No.
People will go and play golf. They will go and play cricket. They would want time for themselves. They would like to read books. Obviously, you are focusing. But when an organization says, we want to focus, we want you to unilaterally focus on one thing, I think that is more of a crime.
No,
because
when I say mentally,
because we all have a span of attention. Please understand, Mr. Alam.
All right.
We all have a span of attention towards a particular thing. So let us have a break from it at the right point of time, rather than saying let it boil as much as it may.
no, what I'm saying, mentally, it means you are there. Look, all I said was mentally, I'm available 7 days a week. But when the problem arises, then I told that. But when you're on your own,
I just want to quickly end with closing thoughts. Deepak, if I could quickly ask you, is 7 days even possible? Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi. Are you asking me?
Yes.
Okay, so 7 days, according to me, is actually a joke. So let's just not get serious about it. It was a very casual statement. I think we've taken it too seriously.
Okay.
And just doing too much.
Quickly,
Yeah.
Kanishk, Dr. Kakkar, I will.
Yeah,
Kanishk, do you think it's all right, Dr. Kakkar?
One thing. One thing is, if people start getting a salary of 51 crore annually, so I'm sure they would also like to work for 7 days a week. You know what I mean? When you are at the highest level, or when you are an entrepreneur, or when you are a founder, the kind of incentive that you have, it itself is a motivation for you.
Right, but I'm sure, Dr. Kakkar, none of the majority of the labor workforce is getting that incentive, and that's why, Kanishk, I'd like to ask you, is 7 days even possible?
See, a certain time of your business and certain part of your business would require those 7 days to be done, but that can't be done on a long-term basis. It's not possible.
All right.
It'll lead to larger impact, but yes.
It certainly is, as if you go by the data that we've been sharing. Rituparna, quickly, your closing thoughts. Is workaholism becoming the new escapism going by all the corporate honchos?
I just feel this is such an overplayed narrative which keeps coming back. It's honestly mindless. It's never going to happen. It will never get executed. Whoever has to work hard based on a situation demanding will work hard, will do long hours. But it can never be a mandate the way it's being made out to be. It's foolish, it's myopic. It's not going to make India great in any which way.
All right, we'll have to leave it at that, because remember, for some, success may mean pushing the limits and embracing the hustle, especially in the short term. But for others, long-term happiness and well-being may come from a more balanced approach. Ultimately, the key is self-awareness, understanding what drives you, what you're willing to sacrifice, and how you can achieve success while staying true to your values. And with that, it's time to slip into a quick break. But when we'll be back, we'll be telling you all about the Sambhal land dispute row, as the Uttar Pradesh government is now making a big assertion. We'll be bringing you the details on the other side. Stay tuned.
they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledged what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is a first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said. But they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like two people that like each other. And we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know. We just got along. But I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on. And I thought it was a beautiful service. But we all got along very well, which is good. I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that. And it took work, but it got me a lot of votes because when explained, I mean, we have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about aspects of the case that are the most vital aspects. And remember, this is a man that said he wants the transition to be smooth. Well, you don't do the kind of things. You don't have a judge working real hard to try and embarrass you. Because I did nothing wrong. By the way, I did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. If I did something wrong, I wouldn't be standing here right now because I've won all these cases. Nobody's ever won so many cases as I have.
How'd it go today? What happens next, sir? Any word? Anything you can share with us?
No, I don't have a comment.
When has the judge said he'll rule?
I have no comment.
Have you spoken to Mr. Trump?
Coming back to the ruling, Mr. Blatch?
Welcome back. Now, the Supreme Court today halted the planned restoration of an old wall located outside the entrance of the Shahi Jama Masjid in Sambhal. The Supreme Court has issued a notice on the plea from the Masjid Committee. The Supreme Court has directed no action to be taken regarding this private, in fact, well that has been located near the mosque entrance. The court ruled that no notices related to the well should be enforced. It's maintained the status quo on the issue. Authorities have been instructed to keep a close watch to ensure peace and harmony remain in the region. The district administration has asked to file a status report within 2 weeks to update the court on the current situation. Now, while Hindu side is claiming that the well lies outside the mosque's purview, implying that it is not part of the mosque's property or control, the Muslim side is arguing that the well is partly within and partly outside the mosque. They further state that the community has been drawing water from the well from time immemorial. Uttar Pradesh government has now made an assertion that the well is a public well and is the property of the state, not belonging to any specific group. They also assert that the situation is peaceful and under control at the moment, accusing the Muslim side of attempting to create problems. The Sambhal row has taken a new turn as Jawaharlal Nehru's 1924 letter has also triggered a fresh debate in the entire matter. Let me tell you what the letter states, that Hindus are an aggrieved party in Sambhal. 2 temples were desecrated and idols even broken. Many Hindus were badly beaten in Sambhal. No Muslim has sustained any injury, and there is burden of proof which lies on Muslims. As this letter now makes a fresh appearance in the ongoing Sambhal Masjid controversy, BJP is now training its guns at Congress and is now demanding answers. Remember this, as the Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has already demanded that the case files of the riots back in 1978 should be revisited by the Uttar Pradesh administration. And with that, we slip into another break. And with that, when we come back, we'll be telling you all about the devotees who are paying the price for mismanagement in the Tirupati temple tragedy. And we'll in fact be posing the question on the VIP culture, which is currently under scrutiny.
Co-powered by. Well, they called for an appeal, and as you know, they acknowledge what the judge said about no penalty, and there's no penalty. But we're going to appeal anyway, just psychologically, because frankly, it's a disgrace. It's a judge that shouldn't have been on the case. He's a highly conflicted judge, and they called for an appeal. So I read it, and I thought it was a fair decision, actually. So I'll do my little thing tomorrow. They can have fun with their political opponent. As you know, I'm under a gag order from a judge. This is the first. This was an attack of a political opponent. And if you take a look at it, I'm not supposed to be talking about it, so I won't. I'm the first president and probably one of the first candidates in history that's under attack with a gag order, where I'm not allowed to speak about something. And they ought to find out what that's all about. And this is a long way from finished. And I respect the court's opinion. I think it was actually a very good opinion for us because you saw what they said, but they invited the appeal, and the appeal is on the bigger issue. So we'll see how it all works out. I think it's going to work out well.
Off the top, you mentioned the Carter funeral today. What were you talking to Barack Obama about?
It did look very friendly, I must say. I didn't realize it. I didn't realize it, how friendly it looked. I saw it on your wonderful network just a little while ago before I came in, and I said, boy, they look like 2 people that like each other. And we probably do. We have little different philosophies, right? But we probably do. I don't know. We just got along. But I got along with just about everybody on that. We met backstage, as you know, before we went on. And I thought it was a beautiful service. But we all got along very well, which is good. I call it the Injustice Department. What they've done is so bad. The whole world has watched that. And it took work, but it got me a lot of votes because when explained, I mean, we have a judge in New York who's a very crooked judge. I'm under a gag order. I can't even talk about aspects of the case that are the most vital aspects. And remember, this is a man that said he wants the transition to be smooth. Well, you don't do the kind of things. You don't have a judge working real hard to try and embarrass you. Because I did nothing wrong. By the way, I did nothing, absolutely nothing wrong. If I did something wrong, I wouldn't be standing here right now because I've won all these cases. Nobody's ever won so many cases as I have.
How'd it go today? What happens next, sir? Any word? Anything you can share with us?
No, I don't have a comment.
When has the judge said he'll rule?
I have no comment.
Have you spoken to Mr. Trump?
Coming back to the ruling, Mr. Blanche?
Now, the Stampede tragedy at Andhra Pradesh Tirupati temple has already claimed 6 lives and left several others injured, has also triggered a massive debate on the VIP culture, especially in religious places. The incident has raised concerns about overcrowding and inadequate crowd management, particularly when special privileges are given to VIPs, that too at the expense of ordinary pilgrims. In the latest, Andhra Pradesh Deputy Chief Minister Pawan Kalyan has rapped the TTD authorities for continuing to ignore the common pilgrims by nurturing the VIP-centric focus in spite of the regime change. Remember, this comes days after Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar expressed his opinion, saying that we should do away with the VIP culture, as the very idea of VIP darshan belittles the concept of equality. So is it time to arrest the Lal Batti or Red Beacon culture in public governance? Before we deep dive into that question, let's also bring you the aftermath of the tragic Tirupati Stampede. Several officials have now faced a disciplinary action. Tirupati DSP Ramana Kumar has been suspended for negligence in handling the situation and failure to ensure safety. TTD Director Harinath Reddy has also been suspended due to his role in the mismanagement of crowd control and lack of oversight during the incident. Tirupati SP L. Subrahmanyan has been transferred in response to the failure in maintaining law and order during this entire event. The TTD GOM Gautami has been transferred as part of accountability for the lack of effective crowd management measures. TTD Chief Vigilance Officer S. Sridhar has been transferred for oversight failures and negligence in the management of the temple's operations. Now, the VIP culture at religious sites has repeatedly been linked to tragic incidents involving overcrowding and even inadequate crowd management. Several high-profile temple tragedies have already highlighted how the prioritization of VIPs over ordinary devotees can lead to devastating consequences. Let me take you back to 2022. On 19th of August, the Bake Bihari temple in Vrindavan, 2 devotees were killed, even several others were injured. Some sevadars at the temple alleged the officials remained busy in making way for the VIPs and their families, which led to that entire stampede. On 1st of January in 2022, Mata Vaishno Devi's shrine, over 12 were killed while a dozen were injured. The tragedy occurred after the yatra was stopped to facilitate darshan for a VVIP, reportedly a senior bureaucrat, leading to a massive crowd surge and fatalities. Now, on 26th of July, back in 2021, Mahakaleshwar temple in Ujjain, several devotees again, including children, were injured. The crowd turned uncontrollable, this after VIP visits again, including those of Shivraj Singh Chauhan and Uma Bharti, that resulted in injuries to numerous devotees. Now, on 20th of June in 2023, Sri Yellamma Pochama Devasthanam in Hyderabad, devotees alleged that the general queue was put on hold while VIP devotees were prioritized. That also caused much frustration and tension among the general public. The incident has now become a catalyst for broader discussions about fairness, accountability at temples and other religious places. And so, taking a cue from the Tirupati Stampede and that tragedy, the question we are asking is, what is the cost of the VIP culture? Is it now costing lives?
Every temple should become from VIP focus to centric to common man focus. That's what we are looking at.
It is an incursion when viewed on the anvil of equality. It should have no place in society, much less in religious places.
Our panelists today. I'm joined in by Ajay Kumar, who's the national spokesperson of the Jana Sena, Patabi Ram, who's a spokesperson for the TDP, Mr. B. Redana, who's a former IPS officer. Many thanks to you for joining in. Ajay Kumar, if Mr. Dhankar has gone on to say that VIP culture is an aberration, Pawan Kalyan has issued an apology himself. What is being done about the VIP culture? There have been sackings, there have been transfers, but will the VIP culture in Tirupati still continue? That's the answer I am looking for.
Good evening. Firstly, I would like to apologize on behalf of the Janasena Party to the family of the deceased. Mr. Pawan Kalyan had apologized earlier, not just to the family of the deceased.
We seem to have lost your audio, Ajay Kumar. All right, Patabi, would you like to take that forward? Because everybody is asking, nothing will change. I just took you to through that entire list of stampedes that have happened all over India, and all because VIPs were allowed to be given those darshans during peak hours.
Yeah, Akanksha, I completely agree with you. Whichever pilgrim center it is, whether it is Tirumala or Annavaram or any other pilgrim center where, lakhs of pilgrims come to have a darshan of the Lord, it should always be the common pilgrim, not the VIPs or the VVIPs. The temple trust boards or the endowments department, which handle the administration of the temples across the country, should focus primarily on the common man, on the common pilgrim, who from far off distances come to have a darshan of the Lord. For example, you take Tirumala, people from across the country come there, Akanksha, traveling thousands of kilometers. People from abroad, come there to have a darshan of the Lord. So, as our Honorable Chief Minister, Shri Mr. Naidu, and Deputy CM, Mr. Pawan Kalyan had rightly said that it should always be the common pilgrim who should be given the priority and not the VIPs and the VVIPs. And as far as the recent unfortunate incident that happened at one of the token issuing counters, it is very unfortunate, and the Honorable Deputy CM had apologized, and the Honorable Chief Minister was also there immediately. He had ordered a judicial inquiry. He had taken action on a lot of officials who were responsible for this. He personally went to the hospital, met the people who were injured, spoke with them, and he also, took stock of the entire situation.
But is that enough? Is that enough? And that is the question right now. Offering them an ex gratia for a life that's already been lost of a loved one to those families, is that doing enough? And, in fact, the opposition's of the view that even that ex gratia amount is not going to suffice. But let me quickly bring in Mr. Reddanna on that note. Mr. Reddanna, I'd like your thoughts, because if you look at Tirupati again, the question is, who will ensure that TTD actually puts those security measures in place and that the VVIP culture is brought to an end in religious institutions? Let's start with Tirupati first.
It is there all over India, not only in Tirupati, but tragic incident has happened only in Tirupati, not in Tirumala Hills. Earlier practice was, I worked there right from 1974. I was there in Tirupati in 1974. And till 1978, well, I joined CBI. Till 1986, I was there in Tirupati. I visited several times on Bandobast. But the rush has become too much. When in the year 1986 also, everybody used to go through via Mahadwaram. I have attended several times Bandobast and Vaikunta Ekadasi. People believe there is a sentiment and faith. Whoever have darshan on that day will directly go to the heaven. That is the sentiment. And people will believe whoever have darshan of Lord on the day will have good, on that year good omen will happen. Their desires will be fulfilled. Like that, everybody believes. This has happened now. The thing is, the Vaikunta Ekadasi has only 3 days. Ekadasi, Dwadasi, not from Trayodasi. It so happened since 3-4 years or 5 years, they have done another practice that Vaikunta Ekadasi will be there for 10 days. So people all over India, not only from India, from abroad also, it has been promulgated that darshan will be there for lakhs of people all these 10 days. So that's how people came to have tokens. There is mismanagement of police department as well TTD department. Because of the night, they overlooked, there is no proper bandobast there. Once the gate was opened, the crowd, because somebody was not well, so they opened the second gate. So people thought that they have opened the gates only to take tokens. Thousands of people rushed, and in this mismanagement, people were injured, 6 people were died. This is how it has happened. Earlier, never in the history of Tirumala has happened. I do agree, there is a VVIP culture.
I disagree over there, because there have been near stampede situations as far as Tirupati is concerned. One in 2017. In 2022, in fact, some were even injured. None died. There was a minor stampede, 6 were injured, and in 2025 you can see the reality. So it's not like Tirupati has not been sort of anticipating this kind of a scenario. But I'd like to bring in Ajay Kumar on that note. Ajay Kumar, is it safe to just blame the TTD over here? And as you heard what Mr. Reddanna has had to say, that there clearly was a lack of bandobast. And if you look at stampedes all over the globe, not just in India, studies have proven that it's just a direct indication of crowd mismanagement and inadequate security.
Yes.
Yeah, see, actually, I think there was definitely failure on part of the authorities in assessing the kind of crowd that was likely to. When they said that, tokens will be issued in the evening, crowd started gathering right from the morning itself and filled up the school grounds. I think the school is known as Bairaga Pattada in Tirupati. They kept crowds there from morning till evening. I think the whole day crowds were waiting, and I think that sort of also led to some sort of impatience on behalf of the crowds. So definitely there was a lack of planning and lack of anticipation about the quantum of the crowd. But see, one thing we have to definitely agree is that there is a VIP culture that is pervading the TTD today. The entire mechanism of TTD is more tuned to feed, take care of the VIPs that come in. And it's true that VIPs come in across. It's just not belonging to one area. I mean, VIPs come from the judiciary, from the bureaucracy, from politicians, everywhere. Okay. But it's an all pervading culture. And there is a huge dissatisfaction amongst people that VIPs are given more preference than the regular bhaktas.
Patabi, I want to bring you in. That's a very significant point, and I appreciate Ajay Kumar, in fact, making that admission on air over here on this show. But it's not the first time that your party has been in power. What have you been doing about it? I understand that flagging of issues as far as the quality of ghee in the laddus is concerned is important. It's crucial. That's as important perhaps for you. But what about the cost of lives?
Yeah, Akanksha, here there is one more issue that we should all underline. Till 2022, this system of giving physical tokens was not there. These tokens for Vaikunta Dwara Darshanam were given online. But the last government had stopped this online thing and had started issuing tokens physically, and they have even extended this Vaikunta Dwara Darshanam to a period of 10 days. So after these decisions were taken, these kind of things started happening. Now the Honorable Chief Minister, in the review after the incident, he said that they will review the entire thing, whether it can be, taken back to the old system of giving tokens online, or, systems where, you can avoid these kind of stampedes. So yes,
Ram, what explains when there was a near stampede situation back in the year 2017 as well? That time it was your government.
Yeah, see, what I'm saying is, as far as this Vaikunta Dwara Darshanam token issuing is concerned, I was just mentioning the fact that till 2022, this was online. But surprisingly, the previous government, went back to the old system of giving tokens.
But in 2017, there was your government. Was it online even then? And yet that situation. So then you are contradicting yourself that the situation.
So no. Let me see. It is not. See, stampede.
That defeats the purpose. If there was a stampede situation, then.
See, in the queue lines there might be small stampedes. But what I am saying here is, I am specifically mentioning the Vaikunta Dwara Darshanam, issuing of tokens for Vaikunta Dwara Darshanam. Till 2022, it was online. And surprisingly, the government, the previous government started giving these physical tokens where people were made to wait for long hours in the queues. So that was the thing I'm mentioning. Why did the government, get back to the old system of giving it manually, physical tokens?
So that is a point that I agree. It's a pertinent point. That's why I'd like to bring in B. Redana on that note as well. If you are looking at extending the entire period of visitation, then I think that's a valid point that Patabi is also making, that, perhaps digitize the entire process where, when there are tourists visiting places, you have Make My Trip, you have various apps. Why can't we digitize visits to religious institutions? Not just temples, even churches and mosques included. Mr. Redana.
It is true that you can give online, but there is sentiment. See, on Vaikunta Ekadasi Day, previously also, not only previously, even in 20 years back also, they will give directly also tokens. Even Patabi sir should know it. Directly, after issuing the online, they are also issuing the tokens. Whoever goes to Tirumala Hills, there will be about 10 or 20 direct token issuing counters. They used to purchase and go, because local people, whoever are not educated, whoever is having faith, they wait for 1 day, 2 days, go to Tirumala. There are 10-15 counters. Apart from the online, they used to go there, stand in the queue, or 10 hours, 15 hours. They take the county from counter. They will take the badge and go directly to the temple.
All right.
It was happening.
Ajay Kumar, I want to bring. Okay, I want to close with Ajay Kumar's thoughts as well, because I think we've again come back to sort of escaping not blame, but escaping responsibility that perhaps we need to take right now. If we keep talking about whether the issuing of tickets was done in a physical format or whether it was done online, you're still not addressing the biggest evil that is plaguing all religious institutions in terms of darshan is the VVIP culture right now. Ajay Kumar.
Ma'am, regarding taking responsibility, yesterday very clearly both the Chief Minister and the Deputy Chief Minister of our states Sri Chandrababu Naidu Garu and Pawan Kalyan Garu went to Tirumala, and Pawan Kalyan Garu went to the extent of apologizing not just to the families of the bereaved, but to all Sanatana Hindus. He felt that, that it was an auspicious day, and people
Mr. Kumar, that's what I'm trying to tell you, that it can't just end with apology, because if you are just going to end this with an apology, it's going to only end up in mere lip service.
No,
there has to be greater action. You can't just transfer or fire people.
Yes, you are right. It doesn't end with an apology. It requires us to review the entire system, bring in better systems, make sure that the ordinary devotee is given preference over the VIPs. And as I said before, there is a culture there, and that culture is not restricted to TTD alone. That culture is spread across all the spectrum, So
I'd just like to now end, and I'd like to end with observations made by the Madras High Court back in the year 2022, and I'd like to end with the thoughts over here. People are frustrated with VIP culture, more specifically in closed premises like temple, as the devotees are made to suffer on account of special darshan to VIPs and other important persons. People are lamenting and in fact cursing at a time they ought to be closest to God. It's food for thought. Many thanks to you, gentlemen, for joining in. And with that, it's a quick wrap from my end. Thank you so much for watching Plain Speak.
Greenlam Laminates presents CNN News 18 Primetime Studio.
Good evening. You're watching The Right Stand with me, Poonam Burde. We are coming to you live from the CNN News 18 Primetime Studio, presented by Greenlam Laminates. Now, Sambhal is back in focus 2 months after violence brought an eerie reminder of communal clashes that have haunted the town. An uneasy calm prevails there today. I say uneasy because that's what the Uttar Pradesh government believes it to be, and so does the Mosque Committee of the Shahi Jama Masjid that petitioned the Supreme Court to refrain from initiating an investigation into a private well that's located within the mosque premises. Now, both parties blame the other for disturbing peace in Sambhal by keeping the pot boiling. A bench led by Chief Justice Sanjeev Khanna directed the local administration that no action will be taken concerning this particular well without the topmost court's permission, and instructed the authorities on ground to submit a status report within the next 2 weeks. Now, the notice by local municipal authorities was stayed even as the Uttar Pradesh government contended that this well that is being spoken of, where the Hindu side wants to offer prayers, was situated on government land, that it's half inside the mosque and half outside. It was public property, and that is why they should be allowed to offer prayers there, was the contention the Hindu side made. Now, the legal battle continues in the highest court of this country, but the town of Sambhal remains on the edge. Because Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister Yogi Adityanath has not minced his words in the recent past when he defended his government's decision to reopen locks on several temples in Sambhal, or backed the idea of reclaiming the local Jama Masjid mosque that we're talking about, that he claimed was allegedly constructed over the Harihar temple, and that there was an Islamization of Sambhal altogether. A claim that his opponents have lambasted on multiple occasions. So the question we want to ask here on The Right Stand is, who really is against peace in Sambhal? Because that's what the Supreme Court put its priority on today.
The so-called well, which is a subject matter of dispute before the Honorable Supreme Court today, was never a part of the so-called alleged mosque. This so-called well is outside the mosque. People were worshipping in the well.